Hey guys, and welcome to day 19 of Inktober. So over the past few days, I've been both very busy and very tired, what I would call borderline exhausted. I didn't get a lot of sleep and have just generally been struggling to keep up with Inktober. And this tiredness impacted several things on this channel. First of all, the lack of voiceovers, but also the fact that I poorly exported what was supposed to be yesterday's video and exported about 56 extra minutes of a completely black screen. And so I didn't realize that was happening until after the export was finished. But because it was so long, I had to go to bed before the export finished. And by had to, my eyes were literally falling shut as I was sitting at my computer. So I knew that I needed to go to bed just because I had slept so poorly and I was feeling so exhausted. However, I am back and I am feeling better today. And I'm glad that I'm back to recording these voiceovers because I really missed incorporating them into my videos. I feel like they add a certain something to them that you don't really get so much without it. This tiredness also impacted my artwork in certain ways, in the pieces I created not necessarily being as compositionally interesting or detailed as I would have liked them to be. And though I've decided that there's nothing wrong with this and I'm trying to come to terms with that, I knew that I wanted to do something very simple today, and I wanted to work on the execution specifically, as opposed to creating something that was very complicated. And again, because of my tiredness yesterday specifically, I went to cut a 9x12 sheet of watercolor paper down to 8x10, and I cut the short side to 8 inches, turned my paper, and I went to cut the second side, and I thought, you know, this looks wrong. But my brain was not in a place where it was functioning in the way that it normally does, where normally I would double check and triple check and make sure that I'm not screwing something up. But because my brain was off and I was so tired, I ended up cutting an 8x8 inch square. And so I ended up with a 4" by 8" piece of watercolor paper. Now, this isn't necessarily a size that I would voluntarily choose to use, but I decided that since I had done it, I wanted to make the most of it, and that is the piece of paper that I'm using for today's illustration. And this is an interesting thought, I think, because sometimes we become so overwhelmed by limitless possibilities that we forget how useful it can be to have limitations. So for this piece, I knew that I wanted to use this piece of paper, so I needed something that was going to be tall and narrow and very proportionally different than the types of things that I typically do. And I was thinking on this a little bit, and the very first thing that came to mind was a rose. And I've drawn quite a few different roses throughout this Inktober, and so the idea of drawing a rose by itself was very appealing to me because it does tie it into a lot of the pieces I've done prior. However, I really wanted to work on the actual execution of this piece, as I mentioned before. And so I spent a lot more time actually studying the details of roses and how the petals fit together and how the leaves look, and just typically trying to get as much detail into this rose as I could without adding anything else. And I did add a few little details near the bottom of the stem where I added some stitching, I guess you could call it. But other than that, the focal point is definitely the rose. And I really, really like this piece. It might be one of my favorites I've done thus far, which is saying a lot because some of my favorite pieces I've done ever have been created during this challenge. So even though you have off days, it is beneficial to do a draw every day or illustrate every day kind of challenge because you're creating more variety, and naturally you're going to like some of those pieces and hate some of those pieces, but you're giving yourself more options to choose from. I stand very firmly by the idea that you cannot come up with good ideas or good results without failing a few times first. Normally many, many more times than you actually succeed. And so, for me, this is one of my favorite pieces, and I would like to kind of explore this idea in the future. The concept of taking something that is kind of simple but kind of complex, flowers can be kind of complex at times, and then really focusing on executing it. I think sometimes I personally become so caught up in what I like in other people's illustrations, how I like all of their little tiny details, that I forget that I'm allowed to like my own style of things as well. And though I do enjoy very detailed, intricate pieces with lots of elements, I also like things that are minimalist to a certain extent, and that's really what I feel from this piece. And naturally, with the composition, I knew that I wanted to have one of the petals sort of falling away, because that's been another theme throughout this month. I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but I have been incorporating that quite a bit. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.